Now, going back to 1999, we have the epitome of what I like to call the effect of extreme sports, ESPN, and all that fun stuff. The X Games, we got EA shout out Sled Storm. Now, before I continue any further, I will say that if my video, for whatever reason, doesn't sync up with the audio, it's because I recorded about a half an hour worth of footage, and basically about the half an hour mark, I discovered that I didn't unmute my microphone. So essentially, I talked to myself for a half an hour with the microphone muted. So yeah, but basically, in a nutshell, this was Sled Storm. I mentioned a few key points, saying that this game does have a Rob Zombie song on it that is basically on every fucking... It was on like 4 PlayStation games, and I think I have all 4 of them. Twisted Metal 4, Gran Turismo 2, this game, and there was something else. I can't remember. But I do know Rob Zombie, for whatever reason, is extremely popular in, 98, 99, as far as being licensable music. Licensed horror music, as far as that were to go. He just basically said, here, do what you can with this. Put this shit on as many PlayStation games as possible. And I mean, at first I thought it was just a Sony thing. I thought he had an agreement with Sony that his music could be just on just about anything. But no, his music was also on an Electronic Arts game, which was this one. Now, also, the fact is, if you notice the graphics, this game hasn't really aged very well in terms of the way the actual sled itself looks, or snowmobile, as it's also commonly known. It just kind of looks like a polygon brick. I mean, I came to the conclusion of this about a couple years ago when I first got this game back again. I used to have this as a kid. Used to love playing the shit out of it. Used to love playing the demo. If you ever had any of the Pizza Hut demos back in the days, this was one of the games that was on it. Was it a bad game? No, it's your standard racing game. It has about, I think, 9 courses in it altogether. I think I went through them. And the courses aren't really even labeled. You can't see it like a course layout of it, which is strange for EA. EA at the time, Need for Speeds, had basically, you can see all the track. You see twists and turns, how difficult the track is. With this game, it really wasn't given to you. I think it was just given numbers. It was given a number on a certain section, like 1, 2, and 3, and I'm sure, I don't know if that meant good, bad, ugly, what have not, but that's what EA decided to go along with it. And some of my finer points on here was there was some areas in here. I forget which one had the one that was in the demo had like the frozen waterfall in it. And I remember there was something on ESPN at the time. I used to get up early in the morning and watch like ESPN Outdoor Show or some shit like that. I was literally 13, 14, 15 watching this shit, and my mother questioned my sanity. She's like, how can you like to watch fishing? It was fucking Saturday morning. What else was I supposed to do? It's not like I had a job or anything to go to. But I remember them alluding to saying that they were the frozen falls, maybe Dead Bunny Falls. And I remember I always called that particular course Dead Bunny Falls. And it had something story to do with, basically, they found a rabbit completely encased in ice. And it was on that waterfall, and they found it like halfway down the waterfall, just frozen in ice. So, hence Dead Bunny Falls. Adoy. As far as that were to go, I can't really remember what I talked about. I know I talked about doing a series of basically saying of games that haven't graphically aged well. Like I mentioned, Final Fantasy VII, and yeah, don't hate me on that, but you got to really look at Final Fantasy VII as what it is. In terms of the overall overworld graphics, absolutely horrendous. Compared to what they were doing, and it wasn't anything, and it was strange. I don't know if it had to do with because they were partially in development in that game originally for Nintendo before they ditched Nintendo and just didn't want to redo those character models. And because the CG cutscenes were done very well, and the actual battle sequences were done very well. And it wasn't until '98 when they used a different graphics engine, which is the one they ended up using for Final Fantasy VIII and more or less their main game that came out that year, which was Parasite Eve. They used a different graphics engine. For whatever reason, yeah, those graphics have aged horrendously, but they actually look better than, obviously, what that did. But like I was saying, it's a Sled, like I said at the beginning, the Sled of this game looked like a polygon brick, but I wasn't sure if it deserved to be in the category of, you know, games that haven't aged very well. I will say one thing, I recorded this on a PlayStation 3, so as far as that shit were to go, I'm not exactly, you know, or I should say I forgot to change the fucking analog to analog, and I forgot how difficult digital was. And I can't believe I used to play this game in digital, because the character that I was, if you know, a character as you can see, she's all over the fucking place. She can't stay on the track. I don't know. Maybe I know she was like one of the characters that had like the best acceleration, best top speed, but it was also like the loosest one. But I mean, it's just all over the road. But I mean, I remember being that way with every other character, now that I think about it. So the controls were a little bit funky back then. Was this game bad? No, it wasn't bad. It was different for the time. I want to say up until this point, up until like '99, I didn't really see any snowmobile type games. It just wasn't. There was nothing appealing about it back then. But EA was kind of, they were known for sports games and racing games. Racing is sports, sports is racing. You know, that type of deal. So they kind of went hand in hand that they would make a racing game out of it. It wasn't bad. I was surprised. They did make a follow-up game to this on the PlayStation 2, which I don't think garnered much traction. It seemed like snowmobile racing as like a whole, in my opinion, that whole phenomenon lasted a couple of years and then just died down completely to like non-existent. It wasn't like skateboarding where Activision killed the Tony Hawk games by releasing them until, you know, they just pounded people in the face with it. It's like, hi, this is the new Tony Hawk. And then before their license ran out, they completely fucking obliterated Name, Legacy and all that shit like that. So, who knows? But this was back. But snowmobile racing seemed to hit its peak for whatever reason when I was in high school, and which would be about this time. Friends were always talking about their sleds. I personally never owned one. Still don't own one. But I mean, there were friends that talked about owning their sleds, their snowmobiles, going out. There used to be friends that used to drive up and down the sidewalk of the fucking in front of my house. You know, I have one friend that swears up and down that he fucking hit my Christmas tree and shattered a ski off his snowmobile, which was quite funny to watch. But it wasn't my Christmas tree; it was my neighbor's. And I watched him zip up and down the sidewalk. All of a sudden, wham! He hits it, and the snowmobile just kind of turns sideways. He's driving, and the ski's like dangling off his sled. So I had to give a quick laugh there, but he swears up and down. So, I mean, this was the time where just everybody had a snowmobile. I don't know if things have changed. You know, pop culturally, snowmobiles have kind of gone on their way out. At least in this area. Climate change done a number on this area, I'll tell you that. So, I mean, as far as that were to go, snowmobiling kind of tanked. Literally right after this game came out, it was like everything leading up to the year 2000. This game came out, I believe it was like September 2000. By like 2001 or even 2000, mid-2000, snowmobiles were like, boom, they were in the shitter as far as pop culture were to go. And I believe there was only another follow-up game that EA made, which was Sled. I want to say they made Sled Storm 2, but it's not, I don't know if it's actually called that. But I know they made another Sled Storm game. So yeah, this was Sled Storm in a nutshell. Sorry for the shitty review, but I really didn't feel like re-recording this, so I figured I'd just throw on an audio track of me talking over it. I figured that would be good enough to quell the masses out there. But in that instance, thank you so very much for watching, and good night.